Welcome back, everyone, to Falcons Central Radio Show on the Pro Football Central Radio Network. My name is Aaron Freeman. I am the founder of FalcFans.com. I am joined by my co-host, Scott Karasik, who covers the Falcons for Bleacher Report. We are back once again to talk about the Atlanta Falcons. This week, we are continuing our positional breakdown by talking about the Falcons' edge players. We'll be talking about their defensive ends and their outside linebackers that basically line up on the edge and will put some pressure on the quarterback. We will also then get to your mailbag questions at the end of the show. We don't have very many mailbag questions, so if you're watching this and you want to shoot a question our way during the show, we might be able to get to it. Otherwise, it's probably going to be a pretty short show. So, Scott, let's jump right into the edge discussion. And let's talk about our boy Vic Beasley and how awesome and great and wonderful he's going to be this year.
Vic's a monster. I mean, I'd be shocked if he doesn't have double-digit sacks myself.
Okay. I'm thinking he's going to get like 6 to 8 just because he's playing some really good left tackles this year, particularly at the beginning of the year with Tyron Smith and Trent Williams and Dwayne Brown. But I think he's going to start cleaning up by the end of the year because he's not really facing anybody worth a damn once we get to like the last 5 or 6 weeks. So he might get like 8 sacks in the last 5 games or something like that, something ridiculous. So, you know.
See, considering the Falcons play Minnesota with Ryan Khalil, who looked awful last year, Tampa Bay, who doesn't know who they're starting between Donovan Smith, DeMar Dotson, and whoever else, Carolina, who's got probably the worst left tackle in the NFL in Michael Oher, or Jonathan Martin, whoever they end up throwing out there is going to be terrible, Jacksonville, who's got Luke Jekyll, who might or might not be injured, and then the only competent left tackle that he plays in the last 6 games is Teron Armstead. Now, Teron Armstead's an average NFL left tackle. And I'd even say Indianapolis's Anthony Costanzo is an average NFL left tackle. So, I mean, even Tennessee, Tampa Bay, right before the bye, right after the San Francisco game. Like, San Francisco's Joe Staley is the best tackle he'll face all year outside of Tyron Smith and Jason Peters. And he gets those 2 out of the way in the first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
New York's got who? Flowers, the guy they just drafted this year, who's a rookie.
It was terrible.
He dominated in college.
Yeah. Even if he was a 10-year veteran, he'd be terrible because he's terrible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, Peters is going to be a tough challenge. I'm not going to disagree with that. Tyron Smith is going to be a tough challenge. I'm not going to disagree with that. Dwayne Brown of Houston is probably going to be tough. Trent Williams of Washington is going to be tough. But after those first 5 weeks, I could see him having 10, 11 sacks from that point on. He might start the first 5 weeks with 2 sacks. But I could see him having a Von Miller type rookie season. He's going against some of the worst tackles in the NFL. You know, he's going against, he's got Taylor Lewan, second-year player, Luke Jekyll, Anthony Costanzo. Those 3 are average at best right now. They've got the potential to be better, but as of right this second, they're average at best.
Yeah, I don't think it's right to put expectations on him, but you have laid out a great argument for why those expectations aren't crazy for him to have a double-digit rookie season. It just doesn't happen that often. But, you know, he does have a pretty easy schedule towards the second half of the season, so if he can start padding his totals, you know, and getting 2 sacks here, 3 sacks here, then he'll definitely have a shot to break double digits. Regardless, I think he's going to have a very good rookie year. It may not be reflected in the sack numbers, but I think he'll get a lot of pressure, and he'll be, without a doubt, our best pass rusher the moment he steps on the field. And, it's the arrow is pointing up from there. And I think eventually, if it's not this year, then he'll certainly be a double-digit sack guy probably by next year or at the latest 2017. And, then rock star from the rest of that.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't take a guy number 8 overall and expect him to suck. And I don't think that he will either. But
yeah, I mean, we talked about this after the draft, and I think we both agreed that his floor is Bruce Irvin. Bruce Irvin is a 6 sack guy?
yeah, Irvin's like a 6 to 8 sack guy. And I think that's his floor this year is Bruce Irvin.
And Irvin, you could make the argument that Irvin would get more sacks if he played on a different team and didn't play with Bennett and Averill that were, sack hogs.
Even they aren't sack hogs, though. The scheme isn't a scheme that's going to, get you a guy who's got a crap ton of sacks. It's just not built.
You're right.
But the edge players do break down. I think they break down into 3 groups. I think you got Leos, true Leos that can only play Leo because they have no redeeming quality at linebacker.
Okay.
And then you got strong side linebackers who have no redeeming quality as a Leo. They shouldn't be playing defensive end in the NFL. They're too skinny. They're not strong enough, that kind of thing. And then you get a couple guys who'll fit either spot. And the way I broke them down will make sense. Your true Leos are Stanley Mapanga and Cliff Matthews. If I see either one of them dropping into coverage this year, I'd be shocked because they both suck in space. They are true, just set the edge, get after the quarterback kind of guys. Your true strong side linebackers are Brooks Reed and Tyler Starr. I don't want to see Brooks Reed with his hand in the dirt at all this year. If he's going to pass rush, have him do it from standing up. Same thing goes with Tyler Starr. He's so much better when he can stand up and rush the passer than when he's got his hand in the dirt. And obviously the 3 guys who fit it either, Vic Beasley, Croy Bierman, O'Brien Schofield. We've seen Bierman play both. He's not an all-pro by any means. But as a rotational guy at either strong side linebacker or Leo, he'd be a good fit. And the same thing with O'Brien Schofield. We've seen him do both. Now, Vic Beasley, we saw him do both in college. We haven't seen him do both in the pros, but I think it's going to be a seamless transition for him as well.
Can't disagree, Scott. I think Bierman putting his hand in the dirt will be better for him. I think he's always been better that way than dropping in the coverage because he's just okay there. And once he tore his Achilles, it was a wrap on him being that sort of guy. So I think now that he's moving back to Leo and can basically play some rundowns and keep Beasley fresh for passing downs, I think would be a good move for the Falcons rotation and using Croy Bierman in the best possible way.
And if he's officially the starter because he plays first down, second down, the first couple plays of the game, I'd be okay with that. If he's seeing 25%, 30% of the snaps, just rotating with Beasley at the spot, I'd be perfectly okay with that. If he was eating up rundowns while Beasley was coming in and passing in other situations, that's an ideal situation.
Yeah, I agree. My question for you, Scott, is, right, we know Beasley's going to be one of the defensive ends in their nickel sub package. We assume that, we talked about this last week, but we think Babineau and Claiborne and Jarrett and Hageman will be guys rotating inside. So if and when Claiborne kicks inside, and I'm assuming he'll also play some outside at defensive end as well, But when he kicks inside to defensive tackle, do you think it's going to be Bierman, Schofield, or somebody else playing that other edge spot?
I think it's going to be Schofield, honestly. I think it's going to be Schofield and Beasley in the sub at the ends. And I think you're going to have in about half the base packages, you'll see Bierman and Claiborne as the starting ends. I think that's how it's going to, or the starting ends. I think how it's going to really shake out.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that that competition. My hope, and I'm not one of Corey Bierman haters. I'm perfectly fine with who Corey Bierman is and what he's done the last couple of years. I'm hoping that we'll be looking back on last year and this year, and we'll be able to say, hey, Corey Bierman was not so good last year because he was, less than a year removed from an Achilles tear, which is typically an 18-month injury. So, now he should be healthy and hopefully better. And, but, if Schofield is good enough to beat out Corey Bierman, and he should be, then that means that the Falcons have somebody else that can bring pressure off the edge and be a productive, situational rusher. If Schofield is that guy, Scott, what are sort of your expectations? If you could throw out sack numbers, what do you sort of expect him to be this year?
I think between Schofield and Bierman, you'll probably get a half dozen sacks between those two combined.
Okay. Sounds reasonable to me. So let's switch gears and let's talk about these true Leos. Now, my boy is Stanley Mapanga, but it does seem like he might be on the outside looking in for a roster spot, especially since Keith Armstrong loves him some Cliff Matthews. And, the one thing I'll say about Cliff Matthews is there's a little bit of I'll say this. I think he's versatile. He can play inside. He can play outside. He's a good run defender. And he probably has one of the top 2 or 3 motors among our defensive linemen. So that always helps him out with coaching staffs because he plays hard. He's not that good, but he plays hard. So you got to respect that. And he contributes on special teams. So are both of these guys destined to be cut this summer, despite all my praise for either of them? Or do you think one or both of them have a shot at making the team?
I think Mapanga ends up making the roster, and I think Matthews ends up getting cut. And I think the Falcons keep 6 of these edge guys because these edge guys can play either linebacker or end for the most part. It's so weird when you think that Matthews was a 5-star prospect coming out of high school.
Yeah.
And he should be so much better than he is based on that thought. But he's just he's just average at best for a rotational guy. He shouldn't be in the NFL right now based on basically everything I've seen on film. Like he's good enough to earn playing time under Mike Smith. I don't think he's good enough to earn playing time under Dan Quinn with Beasley, Bierman, Schofield, Reed, Mapanga, Claiborne, Jackson, Goodman, all these guys ahead of him. I don't think he's good enough to earn playing time with that situation.
Okay. Well, I'm a little bit more optimistic on Cliff. I think he's, Yeah, I'm gonna throw this name out, and people are gonna roll their eyes. But I think he was a lot better than he got credit for, even though he wasn't a big sack guy. Chauncey Davis. I think he's really good at defending the run, and I think there's always going to be value. When you're keeping 8, 9, or however many guys in your rotation, one of those guys should be a good run stopper. If obviously with Tyson Jackson being on the bubble, Malachi Goodman, his future, maybe he's going to be more of a pass rusher now than the run defender. Then I think that's an opportunity for someone like Cliff Matthews to sort of emerge as a pretty good, that last, ninth guy in the rotation or whatever, and throw in the fact that he can play special teams. I think he, it wouldn't shock me if he plays another 3 or 4 years with the Falcons.
I'd be absolutely shocked if he played another 3 or 4 years in the NFL, period.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, he's only 25 years old, but I feel like he's been playing in the NFL for like 6 years now. He's just so mediocre.
Okay. All right.
It's weird looking at it, at his profile and going, man, this guy really is only 25 years old. 26 at the start of the season. But he just hasn't given you anything. And who knows, maybe he explodes and he's the next Michael Bennett. But I'm going to be realistic here and assume that a guy who has, like, what, 1 career sack maybe isn't just going to do that.
It is a pretty safe assumption. He might get 1, maybe.
Every tackle he's ever made in his life is on special teams.
I would say if he plays another 5 years, he'd get 1, maybe 2 sacks, tops.
I think you're being generous.
That's probably fair too. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the strong side linebackers. We got Brooks Reed, we got Tyler Starr. Now, I think everybody can agree that Brooks Reed is going to be the starter at that spot. He was the highest paid free agent that the Falcons signed this offseason. I think it's pretty safe to assume that, he's, as long as he's healthy, he's gonna be the starter at one of those linebacker spots. So I guess my question more is about Tyler Starr. I remember you, Scott, being very high on Tyler Starr a year ago when we drafted him. So are you down on him, or is it just, he's going to get screwed over by scheme?
He's still a project. Until he proves that he's not a project, he's always going to be a great athlete with good aggression who has no idea what he's doing on the field right now. He has talent. I'm not disagreeing that I'm not saying that he doesn't have talent. I'm just saying he's still got a long way to go. A long way to go. But the last time I saw him play, he was in that weird scheme that they were playing last year and not this scheme. I think in this scheme, as a strong side linebacker, he's a really good fit. He's a great athlete for the scheme. And I think they keep him on the roster. And like I said, I think they keep 6 guys. I think it's Mapanga, Reed, Beasley, Bierman, Schofield, and Starr. I think out of all the guys, Matthews is the one on his way out. And it's weird because this time last year I was saying Mapanga was going to be cut, but I don't know. I actually kind of like Mapanga.
I do too. I think I'd have to check it, but I think both Mapanga and Tyler Starr are still eligible for the practice squad. Mapanga, because they did the weird expansion to 10 last year, and you can keep a third-year guy as one of those last 2 spots, and I think that makes Mapanga eligible for the practice squad.
Mapanga is eligible, but if he got cut, someone will sign him away from Atlanta for their full roster.
Probably.
Just looking at the Buccaneers, who would you rather start? William Golston, Jaquez Smith, Larry English, or Stanley Mapanga?
I'll go with Mapanga. Even though Jaquez Smith is not bad, but Mapanga, yeah.
He's not a starter.
True.
Mapanga can go in and at least eat the rundowns. Although I don't know how they got Henry Melton.
Yeah, they snuck him in. I think they signed him in April. So They got some good D tackles in Tampa Bay, but we got John Asamoah, so I ain't worried about it.
And I'm okay with Chris Chester at left guard in a zone scheme, honestly.
Yeah.
But
So
we're talking about defense.
yeah. So Scott, what are we sort of expecting Brooks Reed to be this year? Is he going to be an impact player? Is he basically going to be asked to set the edge against the run, drop it in coverage, cover Austin Safarian Jenkins and Greg Olson, and blitz occasionally? Can he do that? Can he do that at a high level?
I don't think he's going to be playing coverage against those guys. Atlanta's going to run a very zone-heavy scheme. So his job is basically just going to be drop back, cover his zone, be good to go. Maybe press those guys at the line, but that's going to basically be it. I don't see a situation where he's doing anything other than setting the edge and blitzing outside of that press and quick zone. He's not going to be in man coverage on a tight end. I think the only linebacker we'll ever see in man coverage on a tight end is Justin Durant.
Okay. Do you think we will sign another edge guy before camp starts?
The only way that they should sign another edge guy is if the Giants are stupid and cut Jason Pierre-Paul after that whole fireworks thing.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
It's a situation where you can buy low. And should you sign JPP, he's your starting Leo right away. No questions asked. Run and pass downs. He's like 27 years old. And then you move Vic Beasley to a full-time linebacker spot. And then you don't have to worry about run downs versus pass downs. You just make him a friggin' linebacker. And then you can move Durant to middle linebacker or however the hell you want to do it. He's 26, so.
Okay. Well, that ain't gonna happen. So, that'd be the equivalent of the Falcons cutting Vic Beasley before training camp.
I mean, they could always sign John Abraham, but apparently Abraham still got some cobwebs in his head.
I'm still holding out hope that they bring in Dwight Freeney just so he can teach Vic Beasley, the art of the spin move. But
That'd be awesome.
Beasley's already like halfway there. Dwight Freeney could take him the other half. So that's what I'm hoping for.
I think Freeney's the guy that just gets passed over this year in free agency until like July. It's like late July when someone gets hurt.
Yeah, that's probably true. But if it was me, I'd rather have Freeney out there than Schofield as that, sub-package edge rusher. 2 spin moves off the edge is just a thing of beauty. It's wonderful.
I mean, if they could coordinate it to where they were doing that same spin move at the exact same time, and they both hit the quarterback at the exact same time, that would make a great gif. Especially if the guy they're hitting is Drew Brees.
Absolutely. So, Scott, you got anything to add on this edge rusher discussion? Or can we jump into our very short list of mailbag questions?
Let's go ahead and knock out the mailbag.
All right. Well, folks, just got a couple of questions this week, but we'll see if we can drag these out to make it seem like we talked a lot more. All right, Falcons M5 asks, Ant-Man, must-see movie or movie you will pass on? Now you can tell we're in July because there you go. This is the most important thing happening in Falcons land.
Actually, a tough question, though. Because it's July, and there's a lot of good movies out. Now, luckily, I've already seen Ted 2, so I can tell you right now, that's excellent. If you like the original, go see Ted. Or go see Ted 2, I should say.
Okay.
That being said, Ant-Man is a unique thing. Obviously, people are going to go see the Minions movie and go see a bunch of different things. They've got other movies out there like Max, which is about a dog, and Inside Out, and Jurassic World, and Spy, and all these other weird ones. But I kind of want to go see Ant-Man just because Paul Rudd is going to make the dorkiest superhero ever. And when you think about Ant-Man, he's almost as bad as Aquaman.
Okay.
Honestly, how shitty are your powers if you can only talk to fish? If that is your whole thing and you can only talk to fish, you don't have real powers. Your powers are non-effective the minute you step on land.
Aquaman's got a little bit more going for him than talking to fish, but yeah, that's
He's
it.
got a Triton, my bad.
Well, I mean, he lives at the bottom of the ocean, so he's dealing with, those ocean pressures, so it makes him really strong, and he's a really fast swimmer. He can, so he can swim to Jamaica in like 5 seconds. I don't know. I'm reaching here.
You're really reaching here.
You can talk to dolphins. That's a fun conversation. They look like they're having a good time.
Really far. He can heal a little bit faster than normal. He can speak many languages because he's telepathic. But that's like the only land abilities he really has.
Okay. Ant-Man's, Ant-Man, he can talk to ants. He can shrink, and I guess he can grow too. I don't know.
So that's basically it for Ant-Man. But Ant-Man's actually effective on land. And bad guys, 99% of the time, are on land.
Very true.
So that's why Ant-Man's probably a better superhero than Aquaman. Now, must-see movie, I don't know if it's must-see. It might be one of those that, like, I say, hey, I'll go see it, and I keep putting it off, and then it's on, like, Comedy Central one day, or, like, FX one day, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh, I meant to go see that in the theaters. I think it's going to be one of those games. Or one of those movies.
I don't know if it's must-see. Well, no, let me rephrase it. I'm in on the Marvel movies. Call me a Marvel fanboy or whatever you want to call me. I go see all those movies in the theater. Since Iron Man, I've seen them all in the theater. So why am I going to stop with Ant-Man? I've heard a couple of people say it's good, people that, got to see it early, but you can't really trust that. So I'll see it. I don't know if it's a must-see movie, but I'll definitely check it out. So I appreciate the thorough breakdown you had, Scott, on the summer movies. That's the sort of insight that you get on this show. You get edge players and summer movie breakdowns on a weekly basis. I like that.
Well, I mean, when one of the best summer movies out there right now is just a collaboration of dick and fart jokes, let's be honest here.
There you go, folks. All right. Last question. JD Beast asks, how good can Jalen Collins be? Falcons have a chance at having the best cornerback trio in the league?
Potential best cornerback trio in the league? Yes. But that would mean Robert Alford would have to get his head out of his ass in coverage. And that would mean Jalen Collins would have to get his head out of his ass in coverage. When your ceiling for both of those guys is ridiculously high, like Alford could be a more athletic Brent Grimes. Collins could be a more athletic, just better Byron Maxwell. And now Maxwell was really good this past year. He was probably a top 20 corner. I think that's what Collins can be. And when you've got Desmond Trufant on the other side, you don't really need anything more than that. And if Alford can beast out and be like Brent Grimes, The Falcons could have 3 top 20 corners. But I'm being realistic here. Alford will probably be about average this year. A lot of interceptions, probably going to get beat a couple times deep. Collins is probably not ready, anywhere close to ready right now, but he'll be thrown in there on nickel and against bigger receivers like the Mike Evans and the Vincent Jacksons and the Marcus Colstons of the world. So, do they have a chance at it? Yes. Can Collins be really friggin' good? Yes. Is he Richard Sherman? Not anywhere close. But they don't need him to be Richard Sherman. They've already got a guy who, in my opinion, could be better than Richard Sherman in Trufant. So you don't need a guy who's Richard Sherman.
Okay. I really like Jalen Collins' upside, but full disclosure, when it comes to evaluating Falcons draft picks, cornerbacks is the one position where I've been consistently off on guys. I didn't think Desmond Trufant would be a number 1 corner. I thought he'd be a good number 2. Wrong. I thought Shevis Jackson would be a competent starter. Wrong. I thought Chris Owens would be a decent starter. Wrong. I thought Dominique Franks would be a competent starter. Wrong again. So in the history of evaluating Falcon picks, my history says whatever I think about a corner, don't believe me. But that being said, I really do think Jalen Collins has the potential to be a top 10 corner in this scheme. I don't think it's fair to say he's Richard Sherman good, but comparing the two coming out, Collins is a much better prospect than Sherman was. And if you can think about, Byron Maxwell wasn't that good at Clemson. And you look at the Seahawks corners and they've basically taken a bunch of mid-round talent and turned them into, with Sherman obviously being arguably the best corner in the league, and Maxwell and Browner, even though Browner was pretty good at Oregon State. But those other guys basically turned them into quality starters. If you take a talent like Collins, who in my opinion has legit first-round talent as a press corner, then, the sky's the limit on his potential. As far as the Falcons having the best cornerback trio in the league, I said this on another podcast, on Falcons Fans podcast a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago now. I don't think Robert Alford is long for a Falcon uniform. I think he's going to play 2 more years with the Falcons. I think if you assume that Desmond Trufant's going to be the same player or if not better over the next 2 seasons, then he's going to get a big contract in 2017. The summer of 2017, that same offseason that Robert Alford is also a free agent. And I don't think the Falcons will make the decision, especially if Collins is developed by then, to keep Alford at whatever price he's going to make. Because I think Alford's going to be good, and I think he'll get paid like a starting cornerback. And starting cornerbacks in free agency get paid a lot of money. So I think if you're talking about the Falcons being the best cornerback trio in the league with those 3 guys, it's going to be 2016, and that's about it. Do they have the potential to be? Sure. But if they are, then that probably means that Trufant's going to get a huge contract and Alford's going to get a nice fat check from like a team like the Cowboys or the Redskins or somebody like that. And I think Collins slides into the starting spot in 2017. So, if the Falcons have the best trio in the league long term, it's going to be Trufant, Collins, and somebody else that's not currently on the roster. Maybe Kevin White, but maybe.
I guess I'm a little off there because I think that if they could re-sign, if they really wanted to, they could easily re-sign all 3. But do they feel that cornerback is that important in the scheme? I don't know if they do. I think they think one cornerback's important, but between Jalen Collins and Alford and all the other stuff, I think free safety is going to be more important. I think that if Ricardo Allen can show that he's really that damn good, that's going to be a lot more of an issue. Re-signing Ricardo Allen instead of re-signing Robert Alford.
Yeah, I mean, it just works out to you invest in the guys that are irreplaceable, and for the sake of the Seahawks, that's Richard Sherman and not Browner or Maxwell or those guys. It's a revolving door with who's the cornerback opposite of Richard Sherman. And if you assume that Desmond Trufant is going to be that caliber of player, and I think that's a good assumption, and you assume that Alford plays well and Collins plays well, why wouldn't the Falcons have the exact same approach? If they can develop Jalen Collins into a good cornerback, then the expectation should be that, a year from now, 2 years from now, they'll use a third or fourth round pick on another cornerback and they'll be able to develop him into a good cornerback. It's similar to the whole situation with running backs. You just keep them coming, and that's what Seattle's done, and I don't expect the Falcons to do any different. They could pay Robert Alford, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense if you're going to invest in Beasley, Hageman, these other guys on your roster. You just got to make a decision at some point. Who are the core pieces of our team? And with Jalen Collins, unless Collins falls flat on his face, I don't see that being Robert Alford. But, I wish Robert Alford the best. I hope he could stay in Atlanta for as long as possible. I really like him as a player, but I don't see it likely in the cards.
And that's fair.
All right. So you got our summer movie preview. You got our thoughts on the Falcons quarterback situation and our edge rushers. That's our show tonight. We appreciate Matt and John for giving us the 2 questions. Next week, we will talk about whether or not the Falcons drafted a supplemental draft player. We'll find that out in a couple of days. We'll be talking about linebackers, off-ball linebackers, whatever we want to call it. And we'll be answering your mailbag questions. Shoot those over to us. Use the hashtag Falcons Mailbag. You can tweet either me or Scott. I am at FalcFan. Scott is at Scott Karasik. You can also tweet the show's Twitter handle, which is at FalconsPFC. I'm aware that last week's episode is not on iTunes. That's my fault on that. We'll work to get that on in the next week as well as this week's show. So you don't have to complain this week to our producer at PF Central. So, that's our show this week, guys. So welcome back.
Gotta stop slacking on that, Aaron. Got to.
I'm sorry. Blame me.
All right. Have a good week, everybody.